A former Nazi concentration camp guard has just been convicted of more than 5,300 counts of accessory to murder, and he's been given a 2-year suspended prison sentence. Now, the 93-year-old man has been identified as Bruno D., and he served it as an SS guard at the Stutthof concentration camp from 1944 to 1945. He ended up being found guilty by the Hamburg juvenile court because he was 17 years old during the time that he served as a Nazi guard. Now, it's estimated that over 65,000 people were murdered during the Holocaust in Stutthof, which is near a Polish city which is now called Gdansk. Our Europe correspondent Polina Garayev is joining us all the way from Berlin to kind of break this story down. So, Polina, tell us, how did prosecutors even get their hands on Bruno D.? How did they find out about this former Nazi guard?
Well, actually, a lot of the time, the problem here isn't identifying these people. Authorities may already know where they are. It's gathering enough evidence to build a case against them. The investigators of the Central Office for Investigation of Nazi Crimes combs through an archive of 1.7 documents in order to find not only names, but also documents describing their roles and their histories, and then submits its findings to the prosecutor's office, who decides if this is enough to make a case for an indictment. As you can imagine, with cases that are 75 years old, this can be quite difficult.
Right. So break down what Bruno D. is being convicted for. I mean, what kinds of abuses did he carry out while at Stutthof?
Well, it seems that his main role in the camp was partially because of his young age, was manning the guard tower. But this is enough already for a conviction as an accessory to the murder of thousands of people based on the legal precedent set by the case of John Damianuk in 2011. It means that prosecutors no longer have to prove that the defendant was directly involved in any atrocities. The defendant in this case admitted in court that he knew of the existence of gas chambers in the camp, but he insisted till the very end that he was only an observer to Nazi crimes, not a participant.
Right, and I also read that he said that he was forced to work in this Nazi camp too, and he's being tried, or he was tried now as a juvenile. I mean, he's 93 years old, so the question of how you punish somebody who is already at this age is a big one, right? He has been given 2 years in jail, but it's not exactly 2 years in jail, right? What is his actual punishment?
Well, in fact, he's not going to jail. This is a suspended sentence. But I have to say, it may seem inappropriate, but as you mentioned, this is a verdict by a juvenile court, and there was no evidence that he committed any violent acts himself. So this, of course, played a role in determining the sentence. So the victory here is perhaps more symbolic in that he sat in the court when he listened to the testimonies of victims, and he also attempted to apologize. He admitted to be shaken by what they had to say. Also, I should add, this is the first case in more than 3 years where a trial like this actually ends with a verdict. In all other cases that were presented before the court in recent years, the defendant eventually grew too ill or too old to actually continue with the trial. So this too carries some significance.
Wow. You know, I mean, if you could just quickly give us one answer. You know, are there any other cases right now that are in the works, Holocaust cases? How many are there?
So right now there are 14 open investigations. Each of them could be the last, but that is exactly the point. This could be the last time that a trial like this is ending with a verdict. So this makes this case even more special.
Right. All right. Well, Polina, thank you so much for joining us and kind of breaking this down. Obviously a horrible story, but, you know, an important verdict.